Hello and welcome to the third video in this series. In this video we're going to have a camera that follows us along as we move along with our platform controller. We'll have spikes that send us back to the beginning of our scene, and we'll have a tile map, so we're able to create lots and lots of platforms around our level. And we're also going to introduce a door where we can win and jump to a new scene where we can have a nice message for our user so that they know that they've actually won. Here we go. So let's start by making this tile map. So what you want to do is just add a child node from on top of the game, and we're going to create a tile map. With that tile map, in order to create the sprites that we are going to use for those tiles, just over on the right hand side where it says tile set, I'm going to create a new tile set and just click on that tile set to open up the tile set editor. Now we're going to keep this really simple and just use the icon.png. Normally you would have a tile set that's got lots and lots of different icons, and you can choose the particular regions for particular sprites, but we've just got one huge sprite inside this tile set. In order to add tiles, what I'm going to do is just click on edit down here, and I found that if I zoom in and out a couple times with the control and scroll wheel, the thing comes up. Doesn't normally come up. I don't know if it's a bug with Godot, but all you need to do is I'm going to add a new single tile. I'm just going to choose the region for this particular tile that I'm going to use. With the region selected, I'm just going to drag and choose the four squares that take up my image. And while I'm here, I'm just going to click on collision. Just choose collision shape, this rectangle shape. And again, I've got snapping set on here. Without snapping set on, it's quite difficult to get exactly, but with this icon it's an exact size, so we can easily switch the snapping on and just draw our rectangle shape for that. Now with that selected, now that that's done, I can just click back on tile map, and what you should see is that the selected tile is up here, and because I've got the grid set on here, I've got the tile map options up here. I'm able to simply click and drag or click where I want any of these tiles to be. I'm just going to make a little bit of a platform. I'm holding the middle mouse as I do that. So I'm just going to create a little bit of a game. And then just real quickly, I can delete this other original platform here. I'm just going to test that it actually works. So as before, I'm just able to move around and able to jump. And the second problem that we see as we do this is that the player moves off the screen, and we need to get the player to follow it. So let's solve that problem next. So in order to solve the camera problem, all we're going to do is click on the player. We right click to add a new child, and we'll search for camera 2D. So just do your search at the top here for camera 2D. And add that to the player. Once it's been added, it's a child of the player. You can actually see the purple lines which make up where your camera is going to see, and you can adjust some of the values. If you select the camera 2D, you can adjust some of the values on the right hand side, including the offsets and things like the zoom, whether you want to be closer or further away. You can play with these values if you want. The one important thing you need to change is this current needs to be set to on, otherwise it won't work at all. And I really like the smoothing in this as well. If you just open up the smoothing box and click enable and leave the default speed to 5, by playing this, what you'll see now is, because we've set this to current, when I move around you'll see that the camera actually follows, but it doesn't follow instantly. It has a little bit of smoothing in it, so it looks like it's following along and reacting to the movement of the platform player. Of course, our next major problem is if we fall off, the camera follows it forever, and you'll see that it just continues to fall. So we don't actually lose the game if we go below a certain point, or if we hit any obstacles that are on our scene. So we'll just solve that problem next. So there's a bunch of ways that we can actually solve this problem. We're going to start with one of the easiest ones. I mentioned before that we can check the position of this player. And I'm just looking on the position value here with the particular player node. So if I see when the value gets to about 600, maybe 700, That means it's kind of like off of my map if I want to design my map this way so that I can go this way. And one of the ways that we can do a restart is we can track the start position of the player, and then when his value gets below a certain amount, we can just jump him back to where he started. And then effectively it's like a death screen from the bottom, or a detection for the bottom. So if I just quickly go into his script, and what we'll do is we'll just create a new variable. So I'm going to create a variable, and we're going to call this start position, and we'll make this equal to vector2.0 right now. So we've initialized that to a value that's a vector2, so it's always going to be a vector2. And then we want to bring back our ready function. So I'm just going to say func ready, and then in this ready, this happens at the very beginning of the code, so we should just set this start position to the position that the player's actually at. So it's as easy as writing start position equals position. That will just store the start position at the very beginning, and what we need to do is just check during the main loop here. We might actually put it inside of a standard loop, so if we've got the function underscore process rather than the physics process, which is used for everything else in the movement, what we could do is just check in here if the position of the player, and the y position.y, if that's greater than, I think we chose about 700, then we know it's falling down beyond that certain position. And then we're just going to say start position, its current position, get that in the right position, is equal to start position. And you'll notice here that this is kind of like the opposite. So we just store the start position at the beginning, and then when we're actually when we want to restart, we'll just say that its position is equal to start position. Just add an extra little space in here, which is why it wasn't going away. So we're just going to quickly test this, and what we should be able to do is we should be able to just fall off, and we should see when we go to the value of 700 or more, it will end up just moving us back. And because we've got the smooth movement on the camera moves up as well to follow. That's one of the simple ways that we can get sort of a restart for the game, so we have some sort of lose condition. And we can't complete the game if we get put all the way back to the start position when we fall off at any point in our game. So the next major issue that we have, or the major problem we'd like to solve with this game, is that we would like to have some enemies or spikes or something like that that can also kill us. It might also be nice at the same time if we have something that we can have as our win trigger. So at the end here, we're going to have I'm going to make a little bit of a door, and I'm also going to make some spikes. And you can choose anything that you want to make them. I'm going to use Piskel, which is a free program, and I'm just going to make a few sprites, and then when I'm finished with that, we'll jump back straight into the video and we'll get them acting properly with writing a little bit of code. Alright, so I made some amazing sprites, a door and some spikes, and what we're going to do is just make these work. So we're going to have to write some code, and we're going to have to create these objects so that they work the way that we expect them to. What we're going to add first up is we're just going to add to this game here, we're going to add a child node that's going to be my spikes. We need this to be an area 2D, so if you just type in area 2D at the top, and we'll select that for our type. This area 2D is going to have these signals. So if you click on this node, you'll see that the area 2D gives us the option to hook into these area entered signals and area exited signals, and this is what we're going to use. We're going to use these signals, which is a new topic for us to talk about, in order to run some code to restart our game. So that's the reason I've used this area 2D. We need to also make it look like something. If you hover over here, it does say that it needs a collision shape and everything for it to work properly. So I'm going to add a child node, which is a sprite, and I'm going to add in the sprite for the spikes. I think we'll do the spikes first. So just did that bit wrong. So just click on the inspector again and just pop it in texture, and you'll see that it's appeared in the top right over here. Not sure that the sprite's actually big enough. What I might do is just select the sprite here and click on the scale one, just drag that up just a bit so it looks a bit more like the size of the player. Hopefully we'll be able to jump over this one. And the other thing that the Area 2D needs is the collision shape. So I'm just going to type in collision shape, and I'm just going to use a standard collision shape. I could use a collision polygon and create the shapes that exactly the shape that we need, but I'm not too picky about this. We're just going to use something like a rectangle shape for this. So with the collision shape selected, over on the right hand side, just choose a new rectangle shape and just make this approximately the size and shape that you need it to be for our spike. So if we land anywhere in this shape, we'll want to restart the game. So let's rename this. I'm going to hit F2 and I'm just going to call this spike. So we're able to duplicate this, and because I've renamed this and I've set it up already, I'm going to use this this box here that makes sure that the object's children are not selectable, so that way I can't accidentally move the wrong thing. So when I click on it, with the move tool selected, I should be able to just move that one around. So we've got our spikes in place, and now we need to write the code that makes this spike kill the player and make him go back to the restart. So what we'll do is we'll write ourselves a script on the spike. So I'm going to select the spike, hit the plus for attaching a new script. I'm going to make this a GD script inheriting from Area 2D, and I'm going to keep the empty template, and it's going to be called spike, and just click create. So this extends from Area 2D. And what we really want to do is we really want to have this script hook into the signal that we have from this Area 2D object. So the way we're going to do this, now that we've got this script in here, is we're going to get Godot to do all the hard work for us, and we're going to get it to hook it up for us. So if we go over to the node on the top right hand side next to the inspector, and we'll see that this area entered. Now this area entered works when another Area 2D hits, but you'll notice that for us, this player type is actually a kinematic body 2D. So inside of our spike, in the signals, we can also say if a body has entered. So we've got this body entered. When we want to connect these signals up to anything, we can connect them up to multiple different scripts or to any script that we want. I'm going to connect this specific spike one up to itself, up to the script that's on itself. So if I double click that to connect, it will say where do you want to connect it. I'm actually going to say the spike that it's connecting from, and it gives it a default method, a default function name that it will create for us, so we can start writing the code there. So if I click connect, you'll see that it's added this new function, this brand new function, to the script that's on it. So, and you'll see also that the node has one connections, this little Wi-Fi sort of signal icon that shows that there is a connection between this and something else. So if we test that this works, so rather than write this, what we might do is just print ouch or something like that. So what we should see when we test this is that when we run our game, we should see in the console over here that when we touch the spike, we see ouch appear. So as we walk into it, we get the ouch appearing, and we're going to use that to be able to tell the player that that we want him to restart. So we do know that this works. However, how do we know that it's the player that's actually touching it? Because this will happen when any other body enters. And what we're going to do is we're going to hook into this body option. So this body tells us what the body is that went into this area. So what I could do, just to test again, is we can actually print body.name. So we can print the name of the body that walks into this. If we test this again, you'll see that this time down the bottom right hand side, you'll see that we actually see the name player. Because our player is called player, we can use this to check that it is actually the player. The other great thing is, because there's a script on this player, we should be able to run any function that we like on this player so that we're able to reset them. Let's write that function right now. So if we go to player and we open up the player script, I'm going to write myself down the bottom of the code here. I'm going to write a brand new function, and we're going to call this function respawn, I believe. Respawn. And all this will do is this will allow us to respawn the player. And it's pretty simple, because all we need to do is this line right here. So I'm just going to copy it. We just need to reset the position back to the start position, which effectively will respawn the player back to where he started. So this function right here, we're going to call from within this spike. So if we go back to the spike script right now, rather than printing the body name, which seems a little bit pointless, we're just going to check that the body name is in fact the player. So we'll say if body.name is equal to, so that's the two equals, and then player with lowercase. Now this needs to be exactly correct. If you've got the wrong case, if like a player had a capital P for you, you'll need to make sure it's exactly the same here, otherwise it will not work. If it is actually the player, then we know we can run that function. If we know that this body that we are looking at is in fact the player, we can just say that we want the body to run the respawn function. And it's as simple as doing that. It will say to this body, run the respawn function. So let's test that and see that it works. And as you can see, as we walk into the spike, it was the player, and the player has a respawn function on it, so it runs that function, which moves us back to the beginning again. So let's set up the door, just like we set up the spike. To the game, I'm going to add a new child node. It's going to be an area 2D because we need to have those collisions and body entered signals again. To that, I'm going to add a sprite. That sprite, I'm going to put the door on. So back on the inspector, I'm just going to put my door sprite onto that. And I'm also going to add the collision shape that I need. So collision shape 2D, over on empty, choose new rectangle shape, and just zoom into it, make sure everything's the way it should be. So this door sprite needs to be quite a bit bigger, so I'm just going to check the scale, I just drag and make it bigger so it looks about the right size. And then with the collision shape, again, I'm just going to adjust that too, so just move that approximately into shape to cover what I need to be the trigger. And as always, just rename this. I'm going to call this door. As before, we're going to hook into this signal. So we're going to need a script on this specific door. So I'm just going to click the plus to add a script. It's going to be called door, and it's going to be empty, inheriting from area 2D. Just click create. Now that that's created, I can actually hook into this signal. So if I go over to the doors node again, because it's area 2D, I should be able to have the body entered, and I should be able to connect by double clicking and choose the door that it's connecting from. It's given it a nice name for us too as well, so we'll just click on connect and we'll go from here. So we need to check, just like we did with the spike, we need to check that it is actually the player. So what I might do is, to save me typing, I might actually just copy this and we'll put this into the door script. So it's kind of the same code, only we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to do this, we're going to do body.something. So let's, rather than using the respawn, let's go to the player script and let's write maybe a win function that does something else, like maybe loads another scene. So if I go to the player here and go down beyond respawn and just create a brand new function, I'm going to call this function win, and it doesn't take any parameters, so that's empty. And then all we want to do is effectively we want to load another scene. And we have an issue here. We'll just print win right now, just to check that it does in fact work when we do this. So our function is called win, and the spike now, rather than, not the spike, sorry, the door, rather than running respawn, we should actually just run the win function. So hopefully this will work, and we'll just test to make sure it does. As I'm testing this, you may have noticed that one big error there. I put the door up here so I can't actually get to it. So click on the door again and make sure it's unselectable. The children are unselectable, and on the move tool and just drag it down. And rather than have to jump over all these spikes, what I might do is just select the spike and move that out of the way so that we can just test the door and we don't have to run through our whole level. So just testing this now, we should see that we go into here and we get the win comes up. The issue that I have and the reason I'm not able to complete this is because I don't actually have any other scenes to jump to, but I did make one. So this win.tscn is just literally a brand new scene. So I just clicked on new scene, 2D scene. I called this this win, and then I saved this scene with file and save scene as. I'm going to overwrite my one and just click save. So I have a brand new blank empty scene that's called win.tscn. Inside of our main game scene again, if I jump back to this, we want this door to take us to the win scene. So the function was on the player and it was called win. Rather than print win, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to load a scene. So we do that with git tree. And then if you type in scene, you'll see that there's a few options for it. I'm going to use this change scene. Change scene allows me to choose the name of the scene that I'd like to save. So it's not game that I want to load, it's just win.tscn, and that's it. So it's just one line in order to load a specific scene. Let's test this just to make sure it works. So as we move over, as we walk into the door, we end up with winning. And obviously there's a few things that you would want to do in this win scene. The win scene here, you should probably make sure that you've got some sort of message with text or whatever, or draw a nice picture and put that there so you've got something to tell the user that they've actually won. And in another video I might show you about buttons that we can use to hook into signals that we can go back and restart the game, or we can quit the game. But that video's long enough now, so hopefully that's been nice and simple. We have a pretty cool game where we're able to jump into spikes and hit the door, which is our win trigger, and we've got a full platform character controller to work with. So hopefully you've enjoyed this series and there's more to come.